Hello everyone and welcome to this Selenium Python Framework series. In this particular session, we will implement the base page. So let's begin. In our previous session, we have learned that what is the base page. Now directly implement that one. So simply what you need to do is that you need to go to this pages. Inside that, right click, go to new, go to Python file and name it as base underscore page. And now the first thing is that we need to do the necessary imports. So for example, I need to implement the weights. Okay. So for that, I will say from Selenium dot WebDriver dot support dot UI import. And what I need to do, I need to import WebDriver wait. Import WebDriver wait. Now, what I also need to import is that the expected conditions. I will explain you why I'm importing later on in this session. So, from Selenium dot WebDriver dot support import expected conditions as EC. So EC is basically aliases over here. Now let's start with writing the base page. So I will create a class. Let me name it as base page. Now first thing what I will do is that I will create a constructor method, and the purpose of creating a constructor method is that it will be called when creating a new base page instance. So def double underscore init, and inside that I need a driver because I need a browser instance first, right? So besides this self, I need a driver, and then self dot driver is equals to driver. Now here in this particular line, what we are doing is that we are storing the WebDriver instance for the browser interactions. Okay. And then self dot wait equals to WebDriver wait. And here again, we need to pass a driver here, driver, and the maximum time is basically 10. Okay. And here what I did is that, so basically I have created a wait object with the 10-second timeout. So this is the wait object here with the 10-second timeout. So this is our first constructor which I have created. Now we know that in the base page, basically a foundational for the page object model, where we are providing the reusable web automation methods, right? So let's start with the first method over here. So simply what I'll do is that let's start with the open function. So open function will actually open the browser and navigate to the specific URL. Okay. So here again, automatically it will give the self keyword and then URL, and URL is basically in the form of string. Okay. And what this function will do, basically self dot driver dot get, and inside that we need to pass the URL. So basically, if I talk about this particular line, so method, we are creating a method to navigate browser to the specific URL, and here basically we will be navigating to the specific URL, right? Now when we are doing the automation, so we need to find the elements, right? So I'm creating function which will find the elements. So find, and again self keyword, And when we are basically finding the element, we are referring to locating the element, right? So we are talking about the locator over here. Locator. And here the type will be tuple. Okay. And once we have this one over here, so I want this method to return something. Okay. So basically this first line is referring to a method, and this method will return something, and method will basically locate the element and return that element with the explicit wait. We are not using the implicit wait, right? So I'll say return self dot wait dot until then EC. So EC basically is referring to the alias which we use for the expected conditions. You see that? Click on this one. And then now when we are locating the element, so it can be any condition. For example, I want to wait for element to be clickable. Okay, so I will say EC dot, you see that we have different methods. So element to be clickable, element to be selected, right? So I'll click this one, and inside this one, I need to tell for which element you want to wait. So basically whatever the locator will pass, it will wait for that one. Okay. So locator here. And once we have this one, so basically what we need is that you can even go with any other condition. For example, here, if we are finding, we can go with the better, I think, is that we can wait for the presence of the element instead of the clickable. I can go with the clickable over here, but what we can do is that instead of this one, simply I will say EC dot, then presence of element. This is more appropriate for locating the element, right? And inside that we need to pass a locator. Okay. Now we have find the element. What we usually do is that we need to perform some action once we have located in this one. So we either can click or type. So let's go with implement these things over here. So for example, let's implement for the click. Okay. And again, on which locator or which element we need to click, we need to provide that. And again, it's a tuple. And here I need element to be clickable. For that, I need that element, right? So basically here, this method will basically click on the web element. Again, I will be using the wait condition so that it will wait for that element and then click on it, right? So here, let me take an variable over here, element equals to self dot wait dot until, and here I will say EC dot. Now here we are especially talking about the click. So here the best is that we should go with the element to be clickable. And here again we need a locator to pass over here. And once element has been in the state where it's clickable, then obviously we need to click on that element. And that's why I have created a variable and saving this over here. So using this variable, then I will say just click on this. Okay, click, right? So this will basically perform a click. Okay. Now what else we can do? We need to type. So we have different fields on the different web pages where we need to type. So let's create a function for the typing. Okay. And here again we need a locator, and basically again we need to use a tuple over here. And here we might need a text in the string form as well. So I will say text colon str. And again, I need an element. So element, whatever element we will get here, I'll say self dot find. Now this find is actually referring to this particular function. Okay, so that's why, to make the code simplify, so I'm using the one which I have already created instead of writing the whole code again and again. So I'm using that one. And again, this need a locator. I will provide this as a locator. And once it has this one, then I will. So usually when we are working with the field, so sometimes there is a dummy text provided in the field for the reference, or the placeholder is there. So if there is any provided, so we can clear this one and then start writing. So first I will clear that one. And once it is clear, then I need to write something in that one. So now to write, we will be using send underscore. Send keys is basically used over here. And here, when we are referring to a send keys, basically, so send keys, we are talking about a string. So that's why we have provided this thing over here. Okay. So here, I'll pass the text. Now we have implemented the open function, we have find, we have click, we have type. What else we can do? So usually, commonly we have a text. So we need to extract our text to verify something on the different pages. So write it down here. So def, and I'll say text underscore of self comma locator, and again I need a tuple, and here I need a string here as well. So basically this method will use to extract a text content from a web element. So there's a web element and you want to extract a text. So there are so many scenarios where you need to extract a text and verify that text, right? So that's why it is applicable across the different pages. So that's why we are writing it in a base page. And here this will return what this will return self dot find. I'll pass a locator, and then I will use text dot strip. Now strip is basically a function. What this function will do is that it will remove the white spaces. So for example, there is a text, there are some spaces before the text and after the text. So what we need to do is that we don't need those spaces, we just need a text. So the best practice is that use this strip method. It will actually remove all the white spaces. If you don't use that, so whatever the text will you get, so it will come up with all the unnecessary white spaces which we don't need for the verification purposes. So that's why the good practice is that use this particular method over here. And then I think we should go with visibility of the elements as well. So for example, you want to verify that element is visible or not for different scenarios. Again, I'll say is underscore visible, and here I need to pass a locator and then tuple, and then when we talk about the visibility, so we are basically, it's not about any specific output. So either your element will be visible or will not be visible. So basically what we are saying is that if element is visible, return true, if not, return false. So we are talking about the Boolean. So we need to tell this one. Okay. So we are expecting Boolean over here, right? And then the good point is that because we are actually checking over here, this method will check if the element is visible on the page or not, right? Here, I would recommend to use the try and expect. Put this part into try and expect, because sometimes page takes some time to load, right? Sometimes it takes some rendering issues. Sometimes your internet might be slow. So let's go with the try and accept here. So that's why I recommend try and then self dot wait dot until, and here, so we are talking about the visibility of the element. So EC dot, so visibility of the element located over here. And again, this needs a locator, right? And then if the element is visible, we are expecting this function to return true. Okay? So I will say return true. If the element is visible, just return me the true. And accept means if this is not happening, then return false. So return false means that the element does not become visible. Okay, and again it's a time based. So within the time it is visible, then okay, else it will throw out timeout. Now we have implemented the basically a base class over here, and here what we did is that we have written all the reusable methods which might be applicable across the whole application, like finding the elements, clicking on the elements, typing on the elements. So now there can be different fields where you need to type something across the application. Again, this is not limited to these functions only here. If you think there is something else which is applicable across the application, you should be writing that in the base page. Okay. And here in this base page, what I have implemented: find, click, type, text. Text, obviously we need to extract the text, then visibility. So these are common things which we usually write in the base page. Finally, just cross check your code over here. So apparently it looks like we have done everything over here, and here we see that this particular import is not being used. Right? We have missed this thing over here. So basically this needs to be written over here and here. So self dot wait. So wait is equals to WebDriver wait, and here driver. So now you see that this import is being utilized now. So this was something which I was telling you in the initial of this session, that we need to create a wait object with that 10-second timeout. So now your code looks good. We have all the methods which we need in the base page, and moving forward using this one, we'll create the page object for the each pages, and then finally we will be creating our test.